Hello, welcome to Interdependent Study, our podcast where we engage in the learning and unlearning work for collective liberation. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Damien. Thank you so much for joining us today. Each week, we'll bring something new to the table and discuss our thoughts and feelings about it through the lenses of who we are and where we can go for a more just society.
We want Interdependent Study to be a space where we're always learning with one another. And Damien, you're up this week.
Yeah.
What do you bring to the table today?
Well, I'm super excited. I have brought a piece from Inquest to the table today. The piece is called Carceral AI is Here. It's Time to Fight Back. And it was written by Dasha Pruss, who is an assistant professor of philosophy at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and also a researcher at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard. Her research is focused on the impact of algorithmic decision-making systems like AI that are used in the criminal legal system here in the United States. And I think I mentioned this last week, but it was Dasha and her research team that coined the term carceral AI. And our friends over at Inquest have created this entire series focused on it, which I think is pretty awesome. And Dasha's piece that we read for today is really great. Early on in the piece, Dasha outlined some of the ways that AI is being used within the criminal punishment system. And I thought I'd share that to sort of set off our conversation and set some context for the takeaways that she offers in this piece. So she says, quote, "With the meteoric rise of AI, the U.S. criminal legal system has embraced the technology's promise to streamline or automate traditionally human tasks under the logic of penal reform. But AI has worsened the system's injustices. As previously reported in this magazine, Inquest, the increased proliferation of facial recognition on video surveillance has made even more dystopian the long-standing problem of faulty witness identifications, culminating in arrests, conviction, and execution. And it is not only potential criminal suspects who are in danger. Today, products made by companies such as Clearview AI and DataWorks Plus are being used to identify and surveil immigrants, protesters, and activists alike. Facial recognition technology is just the tip of the iceberg. AI gunshot detection systems such as ShotSpotter send police to predominantly poor neighborhoods, areas where sensors have been installed to detect gunfire, and frequently misidentify sounds such as fireworks and backfiring cars, increasing the risk of deadly encounters with the police. In the courtroom, probabilistic genotypes profiling software analyzes scant, messy, or low-quality DNA evidence to estimate the likelihood that it matches a person of interest. AI is used in a wide range of other criminal legal applications. It supports everything from predictive policing, which purports to forecast where crimes may happen and who might be involved, to surveillance tools like automated license plate readers and social media monitoring, as well as managing aspects of prison operations. So, yeah, there's a lot there that AI is doing within the legal system. And again, I really wanted to share that because I thought it'd be a great way to ground what she discusses in this piece and, for our conversation about it. So with that, let's get into it. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I thought this was a great place to start. I appreciated a whole lot about this article. And one of the things I thought when I read that piece that you just mentioned is how much AI is being used to get to a level of surveillance that cops and the ruling class want to see. So there's always been cameras everywhere.
Yes.
But not always watching at the time. And now we can have a fake little robot person watching and guessing things. And so there's a lot of dystopian nonsense that's happening that you just described that's happening right now, which just reminds you that we're living in a dystopia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fun fact. And I think the way Dasha opens up this article is a great illustration of that dystopia. She says, quote, "On a February morning in 2023, 6 police officers arrested 32-year-old Detroit resident Portia Woodruff at her doorstep. Woodruff, a black mother who was 8 months pregnant at the time, was detained for 11 hours and interrogated about an armed robbery and carjacking she knew nothing about. The reason? Gas station footage of the incident, fed into an AI-powered facial recognition algorithm, had identified her as the culprit." So that is enough for me to know that these aren't the tools that we need.
Yep, absolutely.
This undermines the stated values that we are innocent until proven guilty, even more than our criminal punishment system already does that day by day. And it really underlines the point that Dasha makes that you mentioned earlier, that these products are being made to identify and surveil immigrants, protesters, activists alike. This kind of surveillance will just expand the ways that people of color and poor people have always been surveilled in this country.
Yes.
But now it can be 24/7, and it can point a finger at a person, which cops can find convincing enough to hold an 8-month pregnant woman for 11 hours.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. That's what's happening right now.
It's crazy, right? I mean, and I think that was such a poignant story to open this piece with, and to make clear the dangers of this technology and the misuse of this technology. And as you said so eloquently, that we just don't need it. We don't need it. We don't want it. Yeah, 8-month pregnant woman, 11 hours. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It shouldn't happen to anybody, but my God.
Yeah. And if you are even using sort of a carceral frame of reference for things, holding an innocent person for 11 hours, there's something fundamentally wrong with your carceral way of thinking there too, where the person who actually committed whatever crime that is not, you didn't find them.
Right.
And you've wasted all this time on this person who's not that person at all.
Absolutely.
So there's even a way within these systems that this stuff doesn't work, and I think we'll talk about that more later too. But
right, you talked about you've wasted this valuable time, and you traumatized this innocent person.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
And done some harm to her. Absolutely. There were quite a few examples in this piece of the kinds of carceral AI technologies that are out there and the impact that they've had, and again, just how dangerous they are. One of the examples outside of the example you shared that stood out to me the most was from LA. So Dasha shares this, quote, "In the late 2000s, the Los Angeles Police Department launched a pair of programs designed to mine massive amounts of data in order to help predict sources and locations of future crime. PredPol, short for predictive policing, and LASER, short for Los Angeles Strategic Extraction and Restoration, were sold as reform programs to increase police accountability and efficiency. Despite their promises of penal reform, programs like PredPol and LASER ultimately increased the criminalization of vulnerable communities. An analysis by the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition found that a fifth of the people that LASER labeled as chronic offenders had no prior police contact. In a city where Black people make up less than a tenth of the population, nearly half of the chronic offenders targeted were Black. Businesses, residences, and community gathering places across the city were essentially blacklisted as crime generators. Officers were sent into neighborhoods with vague profiles of whom to target. LAPD killed 21 people in 2016, the year these programs expanded citywide. 6 of them occurred in LAPD's so-called laser zones. All the men and boys killed were Black or Latino. 4 were shot in the back. 4 were teenagers, and 2 were under the age of 18. Community organizing successfully forced the LAPD to end its controversial PredPol and LASER programs in 2019 and 2020. But instead of being scrapped entirely, they were simply rebranded. Immediately after discontinuing them, the LAPD launched a vaguely described new initiative called Data-Informed Community-Focused Policing, which combines data-driven policing with community policing. I started to chuckle there because I'm just like,
it's farcical.
It's farcical, right?
It sounds like a satire.
It really does.
This is real life what the LAPD is doing.
Absolutely. Data-informed community-focused policing. Like, get out of here.
Yeah. How many buzzwords can I squeeze into the title of this nonsense program?
And if we do that, like, people will buy it. No, right?
It's data-informed. That means it's good.
No, it's absolutely
Don't mind
not.
what the data is.
Yeah, and how just factual, how inaccurate it is.
Yeah.
That story, that situation just infuriated me to no end. We see here how this carceral AI technology not only led to increased criminalization of marginalized communities, but it ultimately led to the senseless killings of these Black and Latino men and boys. And this was after years of these programs being in existence and used by LA and all of the other harm that they had inflicted along the way too. So there's so much in that is just bonkers.
Yeah, and hearing you read it again after I read it, it reminded me of redlining.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And in so many ways of determining what's a hot crime-ridden spot and what's not. And that was what the FHA did with loans.
With loans.
In the 40s and 50s. Like, so it's the same thing. It's just in a different.
It's in a different
data set. It's a different location. Where the redlining is occurring is a different place.
Yes.
It's a different agency that's happening. But I agree, it was infuriating to read. It's such a clear expansion of police power and control.
Yeah.
And one of the elements of that control is who gets targeted by it and why. I think there's a long history here of who gets controlled and why they get controlled.
Yes.
And Dasha makes a connection here between who's a desirable member of society and who's not, and what that means for these systems. She says, quote, "But the use of algorithmic tools in the carceral system long precedes the latest wave of hype around chatbots. And the logic behind carceral AI is rooted in long histories of control and colonization familiar to any abolitionist. As scholar Simone Brown argues, surveillance technology itself can be traced back to the transatlantic slave trade. Anti-black surveillance tactics were developed during this time, such as the 18th century lantern laws, which required black, mixed race, and indigenous people to carry candle lanterns after dark if not accompanied by a white person. More broadly, data has long been collected to track, divide, and control populations. This tradition was often motivated by the goal of increasing the occurrence of desirable human traits while eliminating undesirable ones. Eugenics, first popularized in the late 19th century, continues to underpin penal policies, which are based on the belief that certain risky parts of the human population should be isolated from the rest of society. Yeah, there's a lot in that. And like you mentioned, that probabilistic genotype tool that's used in courts, there's a way that this all connects to trying to label people bad and surveilling them. And ultimately, as you mentioned about the laser program, these kinds of programs will lead to more people being killed by police.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much in that. I mean, the use of Simone Brown and her research, I mean, and the connection to history. We talk so often about that, that we've seen this over and over and time again. It has morphed, it has grown, it has expanded, it has evolved with this dangerous technology, but it is still the same thing. And the notion of desirable and undesirable just gets me every time.
And it's, I mean, the desirable versus undesirable is an underlying theme, I think, in all of the stuff that they talk about here as being what these carceral AI systems are really about, is identifying who's desirable and who's not, and how do we control and keep those desirable populations away from and protected from undesirable populations.
Absolutely. One of the other things that stood out to me in this piece about this carceral AI technology and its use and application within our criminal punishment system is just how expensive it is. And we have talked at length about the insane amounts of money that are being poured into police budgets and prison budgets all across the country. And this carceral AI technology is just another way that even more money is now being funneled into these systems that don't keep any of us safe. And so Dasha says this, quote, "More broadly, carceral AI systems are often expensive to develop, justifying increases to police and prison budgets. The sentence risk assessment tool in Pennsylvania was intended to divert more people to non-prison sentences, but ultimately had no impact on sentencing, despite taking nearly 10 years to develop and being funded by taxpayer dollars. These are resources that could instead be invested into alternatives that already have robust empirical support, such as funding reentry support programs or releasing elderly populations from prison." It's just wild to think about the amount of money that was essentially here burned and wasted with this carceral AI tool in Pennsylvania.
Lit a stack of cash on fire.
Right, and that's what we got here. And thinking about that then made me think about, well, where else is this happening? This is an example from Pennsylvania, but it's probably happening in lots of states across the country. And as she says here, how all this money could better be served elsewhere to actually keep us safe just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's the expense and how expansive it's becoming, which justifies the expense in some ways.
Right, at least to them, right?
Yeah, it justifies the expense in a budget proceeding.
Yes.
So there are a few examples in here about how multiple state agencies are working together to combine data to surveil kids. One was in Ramsey County, Minnesota, which is where St. Paul is, which was designed to try to prevent kids from turning to a life of crime, so to speak. And the other was, quote, in Pasco, Florida, a similar predictive policing program built on data about grades, attendance, and abuse histories shared with the sheriff's office, produced a secret list of children, quote, destined to a life of crime. School police officers were instructed to use this list to surveil students, some of whom were as young as kindergartners. Thanks to organizing work by the People Against the Surveillance of Children and Over-Policing, it recently became the subject of multiple federal investigations.
Yes.
In 2024, the DOJ settled with the Pasco County School District after finding that the program discriminated against students with disabilities, especially those with mental health conditions. And this was wild to me. You talked about things being infuriating, and I read that line about they were following around kindergartners.
5-year-olds.
Yeah, and it was infuriating and simultaneously not surprising.
Right.
When we realize how much data is being collected about students in our schools through testing and a variety of other things.
Yeah.
That testing and tracking based on assumed skill or competence leads to this kind of mass surveillance. And then you add in these data systems, carceral AI kind of thinking, and it expands the school to prison pipeline in ways that are hard to even fathom in this moment.
Yeah, and to wrap our heads around how we then stop it. But you're right, the carceral thinking and just this idea that this data is being shared with sheriff's offices. I mean, it's just like, no.
And abuse histories too.
Yeah.
Well,
what are we doing?
Well, yeah,
What
this
are we
is
doing?
not right.
Yeah, that was infuriating. Well, all of this has been infuriating, so let's talk about application and how this piece and our conversation about it apply to our everyday lives and work. I think it's no mystery to anyone who has been following our podcast, who listens to our podcast on the regular, that we strongly believe that abolition is one of the only ways to ensure that every single human being has the chance to live the life that they deserve. And so for me, the application of this piece is just the reminder of how dangerous this technology that is being used as part of our criminal punishment system is, and how there is no fixing it. One of the things that Dasha says in this piece is, quote, much of the conversation about carceral technologies has understandably fixated on making algorithms more fair, with efforts directed toward implementing fairness benchmarks to improve the accuracy of risk assessment tools, facial recognition technology, predictive policing algorithms, and so on. My colleagues and I grant that efforts to reduce algorithmic bias, when said efforts actually work, can sometimes lessen harm. That said, fighting to make carceral AI unbiased misses the bigger picture and works directly against abolitionist aims, obscuring the biases that the criminal legal system is built on and relies upon to operate daily. And I think we have enough examples to talk nonstop about for years that make it clear that the criminal punishment system has been designed to inflict the harm that it does and to perpetuate these cycles over and over again. Despite any best of intentions, despite reforms, all of that, it's literally caked into the DNA of the system. And so as Dasha says here, you know, trying to make carceral AI technologies less biased, I think it's just a losing battle.
Yeah, it's a reform battle. That's something to do if you think that ultimately it's, and they talk about this in the article, that's seeding the ground that this is all okay, and that
we just have to figure out the way that it's okay, right?
And it's ultimately it's not. That's not the way to attack or to try to fight this. My application is about the creeping nature of all of this. Dasha says, quote, perhaps the most sinister feature of carceral AI is that it extends policing, surveillance, and incarceration to non-carceral spaces like homes, schools, hospitals, borders, and refugee camps. Technologies developed and tested in military and policing contexts, such as aerial drones and mobile spyware, are routinely repurposed to surveil and control individuals on the move as part of the so-called smart border, turning refugee camps and borders into de facto prisons. ICE also increasingly uses facial recognition software like Mobile Forte and SmartLink apps to track and identify individuals, raising a host of human rights concerns. And when you link that to NPSM 7 and the way that the federal government is now thinking about what is anti-American and how they can use the surveillance state to come down on people who are saying things or thinking things or doing work toward an America where more people have rights.
Yep.
this is the sinister part. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
We're being surveilled more and more, which expands the carceral system, and it gives more money and power and resources to continue to make people disposable.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Sinister. I like that word. All right, well, let's talk about homework. What do we want to do to continue our learning and unlearning work once we leave the table today? I'm sure this first one's going to be pretty obvious, but I want us to continue to explore this Carceral AI series from Inquest. This piece was great, and I have very much so enjoyed our conversation about it. But there are currently 6 other pieces in the series, so I'd love for us to check those out over the course of the rest of the year. I also want to check out the report that this piece is taken from. What we read for today is actually an abridged and updated version of a larger report by Dasha and her research comrades titled Prediction and Punishment, Critical Report on Carceral AI, and it's from 2024. And I think it would be great to just dig even deeper into learning about all of this from the larger report. What about you?
Yeah, that's my homework too. When I read this article, I saw immediately that it was an abridged version of that report, so I found that and saved it.
Oh, great. Good.
And I think understanding what these companies are up to alongside how federal, state, and local governments are expanding carceral AI in this way helps all of us try to fight against it in ways that are actually helping to prevent more harm from being caused.
Absolutely. Well, many thanks to Inquest for putting this series together and Dasha and her team. This was really incredible. I encourage everyone to check it out. Aaron, you're up next time. What are you bringing to the table in our next episode?
I'm bringing our June book to the table.
Wow.
It just so happens that as we release this episode of the podcast, the 2026 Men's World Cup kicks off this week. And our June book is about this. It's called Red Card, the 2026 World Cup, Sports Washing, and the FIFA Greed Machine. It's written by Jules Boykoff and published just this month by OR Books. So on our next episode, we're going to get into how corrupt FIFA is, how one of the major points of these tournaments is to help launder the reputations of the governments and leaders who host them, and to point to how much money FIFA really tries to rake in and squeeze out of every single opportunity that they have in front of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm only a couple chapters in, but I'm so enjoying this book. And as you say, it feels really timely. But also, in addition to everything you said there, I mean, just the ways in which FIFA has tied itself so closely to authoritarianism has just been mind-blowing to read as I flip page by page. So I'm so excited to finish this book and to get to talk about it with you next time.
Yeah, and that history is deep.
Oh, great.
That history's deep.
Now I've got some reading to do. All right, folks, with that, we want to thank you for joining us today. You know what we want you to do here, but in case you forgot, please follow, leave a rating and review, share our podcast with the people in your life, follow us on social media, including Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Check us out on YouTube, and sign up and join us on Patreon to get notified about any new things we've got going on behind the scenes.
Yes, thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's not about us, but it is about all of us. We'll talk to you next week.